The pirates of One Piece exist in a world of relentless ambition, each one driven by their own hunger, their own vision of greatness. And across the seas, four figures stand above all others. The four emperors: Monkey D. Luffy, Red-haired Shanks, Marshall D. Teach, and Buggy the Clown. These four legendary pirates have their own personal answer to the same question: what does it truly mean to become the king of the pirates? For some, it's freedom, for others, it's glory, and for the rest, the answer remains unknown. But whatever drives them, all four are locked in a race for the four road poneglyphs, four ancient stones, each one a fragment of the greater truth. And when these stones combine, they reveal the location of Laugh-Tale, the final island, the last shore of the New World, the resting place of the One Piece itself. But there is only one throne, and only one pirate can sit upon it. Only one can rise above all others and surpass the man who came before them. The man who sailed across the entire world and claimed everything it had to offer. Gol D. Roger, the king of the pirates. The man whose death ignited an entire era, and whose legacy remains the undisputed pinnacle of what it means to be a pirate. But what if I told you that there was a pirate who came before him, a pirate whose ambition dwarfed even Roger's, a pirate so powerful that the strongest pirates of today once sailed under his flag, a pirate so feared, so utterly terrifying that the world government erased him entirely, a pirate who did not merely oppose the world government, he attacked them directly, repeatedly, and without hesitation. A pirate whose ambition was not simply to become the king of the pirates. His name was Rocks D Xebec, and he wanted to be the king of the world. But how did one man get to be so powerful? Why did the government fear him so much that they resorted to erasing him from history? And where did it all go wrong? This is the complete story of Rocks D Xebec from the very beginning. Rocks' story begins over 60 years before the Great Pirate Era. Not much is known about how the world looked, or how it even operated at this time, but what we do know is this. Rocks was born on an island in the West Blue known as God Valley, which is a name and place to definitely remember. Rocks, even as a rookie, would possess an ambition unlike anything the world had ever seen. Where other pirates dreamed of treasure and notoriety, Rocks dreamed of something more terrifying. He did not want to be king of the pirates. He wanted to be king of the world itself. And in pursuit of that ambition, Rocks would relentlessly chase two things: power and knowledge. Specifically, knowledge that the world government had buried deliberately. Knowledge surrounding what is known as the Void Century. The Void Century spans a 100-year period. 800 to 900 years in the past. Research into this era is not merely discouraged, it is illegal, heavily enforced, with extreme consequences by the world government themselves. From what little we do understand of it suggests that this time of period holds the secrets to the origin of the world government itself. A catastrophic war between an ancient kingdom, 20 royal families, and two figures of immense significance. Joy Boy, the first pirate to ever exist, and Davy Jones, who till this day remains even more of a mystery than Joy Boy himself. But why was Rocks so consumed by this era? Why did he despise the world government so much? Well, because Rocks was not simply Rocks, as Rocks bore two other names, with his true name being Davy D. Xebec. The name Davy is an unmistakable echo of the mysterious figure Davy Jones, to whom Rocks is ancestrally bound to, and the D, the middle initial that the world government has come to dread above all others, the will of D, an inherited force, an unbroken thread of purpose that winds through history and reappears in the most dangerous individuals the world has ever known. The world government calls those who carry this name the natural enemies of God. And since the world government considers itself divine, every bearer of this D is by their reckoning a direct enemy of the world itself. And they were not wrong to be afraid, as 56 years before the present day, Rocks did something that should have been impossible. He invaded Marie-Joie alone, and on the day of the reverie, the Grand Assembly of rulers affiliated with the world government, Rocks infiltrated the very heart of the greatest power on Earth, and once inside, he defeated and killed a Marine Admiral in single combat, then proceeded to take 5 kings hostage. The sheer incomprehensible scale of that feat is precisely why the world government fears this name as deeply as they do. But Rocks was not finished. He pressed deeper into the innermost sanctum of Marie-Joie, into a room filled with flowers, and there he found someone extraordinary, Nerona Imu, the true sovereign of the world, and the highest authority the world government has ever known, a secret king. Imu was not afraid, not even remotely, not a tremor of concern for the man who had just killed an admiral moments before, but Rocks understood in that moment that he met something beyond his current reach. He would depart, but not without leaving a message. He said that he would return one day, words that struck Imu with an unsettling familiarity, because those words had been spoken before by Davy Jones, the very ancestor whose name was passed down to Rocks himself. Rocks would go on to make his escape. However, during his escape, Rocks encountered another figure of importance, the King of Elbath, King Harold, and the moment their eyes met, Harold charged. But Harold would quickly discover that being a giant does not guarantee superiority in any way. Their clash was seismic. Conqueror's hockey, the rarest and most devastating force known to man, radiated across the Holy Land as these titans clashed with equal strength. Harold, king of the strongest warriors alive, stood on level ground with a human he had never encountered and never even heard of until this very moment. And in the way of Elbath customs, Harold would immediately respect Rocks for his strength. They exchanged names, and in that single exchange, something began, a bond between the king of the giants and the man reaching for the throne of the entire world, a bond that would prove as important as it was tragic. The clash would end in a stalemate, with both parties growing to respect one another as Rocks pointed towards the new world, expressing his desire to meet again. The events of this day erupted across the world like a shockwave. The man who invaded Marie-Joie alone, who killed an admiral taking 5 kings hostage, the man who stood equal to Harold of Elbath and walked away. Rocks D Xebec was no longer unknown. He was a name the world would not forget, and he was only just getting started. Rocks would continue his assault on the world government, hijacking ships carrying tribute to the Holy Land, and destroying an entire gate of justice, one of the colossal structures, a set of impenetrable barriers guarding the world government's most critical strongholds. You may remember that during Luffy's escape from Impel Down, an entire group of powerful fighters only escaped because Bon Clay had opened the gate from within. Destroying the gate itself was something so downright impossible, the thought never even crossed their minds, and yet Rocks would go on to destroy one alone. But even a man of this magnitude understood one truth. To realize an ambition this vast, he could not do it alone. And so Rocks set out to build the Rocks Pirates, not through fellowship, not through shared belief. Rocks had zero interest in found family or loyalty built over meals and laughter. He relied solely on his own strength. He challenged entire pirate crews alone, using the Davy Back fight, a traditional pirate ritual of games and competition, where the losing crew forfeits members to the victor, a fitting method, one might note, for a man secretly known as Davy D Xebec. And through this he assembled a crew so powerful that you could say their collective existence was an act of violence against world order. Amongst them, Cheeky the Golden Lion, Miss Buckingham Stussy, and Edward Newgate, or Whitebeard. The Rocks Pirates were born, and the seas would never be the same. 8 years after Rocks' invasion of Marie-Joie, the Rocks Pirates landed in Elbath. Rocks found Harold's son, Loki, and ordered him to deliver a message to his father that his son had been hurt, and that Harold needed to return to Elbath immediately. When Loki refused, Rocks would actually attack him and this would get the message to Harold anyway. The second meeting between Rocks and Harold took place inside Orust Castle, and in a remarkable turn, Loki grew to idolize Rocks. Despite their first interaction, he begged to join the crew multiple times, and he was refused every time. But this never swayed him, as Loki never stopped idolizing Rocks, and still does, even to this day. During their meeting, Rocks asked Harold to join his crew, and Harold refused, not out of cowardice. Harold wanted peace for Elbaf. He wanted to reshape how the world perceived his people, to move beyond the reputation of the giants as war-hungry destroyers. And in his mind, aligning with the world government was the path to that future. Rocks then revealed to Harold the next stage of his ambition, to seize Pirate Island and bring every criminal and pirate that called it home under his flag. A force that would topple the world government entirely and seat Rocks upon the throne of the world. But Harold would continue to refuse. And here lies the tragedy. At the heart of their relationship, two men who held genuine respect for one another but had irreconcilable ideas of the future. Rocks wanted to tear down the very world and rebuild it on his own terms, and Harold wanted to build peace within the world that already existed. So Harold has a very difficult decision to make. He can either join Rocks and bring about the Elbaf he wants under Rocks' rule, or he can refuse and bring peace to Elbaf under the flag of the world government. But in the end, Harold's decision brings nothing but pain and suffering to Elbaf and the people around him. The Rocks pirates left Elbaf without Harold. Rocks would then turn his attention towards Pirate Island, a lawless den of the world's most dangerous criminals and pirates. Rocks would succeed in taking control of Pirate Island, as the island fell under his flag, and with it came a new influx of pirates, of immense individual power, who now answered to one name alone. Amongst them are a few you might even recognize: Charlotte Linlin or Big Mom, and of course Kaido, the man who would one day be called the strongest creature in the world. At this point, the Rocks pirates were no longer a crew. They were a civilization of utter monsters. Rocks then laid out his next objectives that would define the next phase of his conquest. Two goals, both of them monumental, both of them in their own way, bred back to the same man he had left behind. But first, two specific devil fruits, one of which resided on Elbaf itself, a fruit Rocks intended for Harold to eat. But the one on Elbaf is most certainly the fruit that Loki would eventually consume, the mythical Zoan model Nidhogg. The second fruit remains a mystery, but if you ask me personally, I would put my money on the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, Luffy's fruit, though it could very well be something the story has yet to reveal to us. And the second objective, Rocks needed to locate a legendary band of Elbaf warriors known as the Galley Law. Not much is known about this band of giants, but we do know that each one is said to have wielded a massive warhammer, and some of them are even ancient giants. But to most people, even those on Elbaf, they are a myth. But Rocks surely possessed knowledge that went deeper than what the world was permitted to know, and he was certain that they were still out there. And of course, he needed Harold to control them. And it's at this point you begin to see the pattern. Almost every thread of Rocks' ambition ties back to the King of the Giants, the fruits, the warriors, the military might of Elbaf itself. Harold was not simply someone Rocks respected. Harold was truly the most important piece in Rocks' plan, and it didn't take long before others would begin to notice this as well. Kaido recognized Harold's importance to Rocks and asked him why doesn't he simply force Harold to join his crew. Rocks' response was to immediately attack Kaido without hesitation. Whatever chemistry held the Rocks pirates together, it was not warmth, but the respect Rocks held for Harold was not something he would allow to be questioned. He gathered these monsters under a single promise, to show them the absolute peak of the world through the reach of his ambition. The Rocks pirates went on to deliver devastation on a scale the world had never seen. 67 ships sunk, 16 raids conducted, 14 ports, 5 towns, and an entire kingdom left in ruin. The world came to know their strength, and came to dread the name that was attached to it. Eventually, they invaded the International Philanthropy Federation, looting every berry meant for charity, and emerged to find themselves surrounded by an entire fleet of marine battleships. The Rocks pirates emerged unscathed. This was undeniably the era of Rocks D Xebec. He and his crew committed violations against the world order so severe that 25 of them were buried completely, never spoken of, never recorded. Learning that the world government had clashed with the giants of Elbath, Rocks returned once more. Another attempt to bring Harold into the fold. Harold would refuse again. And 42 years before the present, a legendary figure arrived on Pirate Island, the former captain of the Kuja pirates of Amazon Lily, and the most beautiful woman in the world, who had abandoned piracy to run a bar. Her name was Shaki. I wonder where we've heard that name before, but Shaki was not his. Rocks would secretly marry a woman named Eris, and father a son, who would go on to become known as Marshall D. Teach. Knowing that a wife and child made him vulnerable, he sent them away to God Valley. And yet, even after all of this, after everything, Rocks could still not let go of Harold, as he then made a third journey to Elbath. The moment he arrived, Harold attacked him. The world government had delivered their condition. If Elbath truly wanted to join the world government, Harold would have to eliminate the threat of Rocks D Xebec personally. Rocks tried to reason with him. He warned Harold that the world government wanted Elbath for its military power alone, that its people would be captured, enslaved, and reduced to soldiers and pawns, in service of a world order that viewed them as weapons, not people. Harold remained unmoved. Whatever the world government's flaws, he saw no better path forward for Elbath. It did not matter. Harold could not deliver on the world government's demand anyway, as the clash would end in a draw. But something was lost that day that could not be recovered. Their friendship was over. Rocks had given up on Harold entirely. But it wouldn't take long for the world to be in a state of shock again, as Shaki had been taken, kidnapped by an unknown hand, the same hand that had killed a member of Rocks' crew in the process. And 1 year later, the truth was revealed. She was being held by the world government as a prize, a pawn in the world noble's native hunting competition, to be hosted on an island known as God Valley, the place where Rocks was born. After learning about this, Rocks immediately ordered his crew to follow him. What they did not know, what no one knew, was that the real reason had nothing to do with Shaki, as Eris was there, Teach was there, his wife and son, hidden away in the one place he had believed was safe, were now sitting at the most dangerous gathering on Earth. Rocks sailed for God Valley with the weight of everything he had ever protected pressing down on him, but he would not make it there uncontested, as Harold was waiting at sea. For the first time in all their years of collision and confrontation, Rocks asked to speak with him privately. No fighting, no demands, just two men and whatever time remained between them. And there, on the open water, Rocks told Harold the truth, his real name, Davy D. Xebec, the full inheritance of that name and everything it carried. And then he told him about Eris, about Teach, about the son he had hidden from the world because the world would have used him to destroy everything. He asked Harold to help him one final time, but again Harold would refuse Rocks' plea for help. And so they fought, as Rocks struck a devastating blow against Harold's ship and sailed on, leaving behind the last person who had ever truly known him, drifting on the water behind him. The Rocks pirates then made landfall on God Valley. They tore through the World Nobles massacre and disrupted the competition entirely, but the island had other guests. The Roger pirates arrived, then the Marines, led by Monkey D. Garp, then the Holy Knights, and in an instant God Valley became something beyond a battlefield. It became an ending. Rocks broke off from his crew and went looking for his family. He found them, but he also found someone else. Biggerland Garling was already there, accompanied by another knight, and what followed was something Rocks never could have prepared for. Garling and his companion used their powers to transform Rocks' father and grandmother into demons, living weapons. Rocks ran. For the first time in his life, Rocks D. Xebec ran, not from a fight, but from what the fight had become. He fled with Eris and Teach beside him, the three of them moving through the chaos of a dying island. And then Eris stopped. She told him to let her go. she would take Teach and that they would survive, the two of them alone, and they would find each other again at Lelucia Kingdom after it was all over. Rocks let her go. He turned around and walked straight back into the fire. He found Garling once more and destroyed him. He completely overpowered the knight who had turned his family into monsters and left him broken and battered on the ground. But the victory only lasted a moment, because then Rocks saw something that stopped him entirely. Emu, the person he met all the way back in the flower room, had possessed one of the Gorosei, Saint Saturn. And Rocks understood. The ruler of the world had come for him personally. This was never about God Valley. This was never about the competition or the pirates or even Shaki. Emu had come because of the promise Rocks carried in his blood. Rocks stepped forward to meet the ruler of the world. He cut off one of Saturn's legs and affirmed it. Davy Jones' promise would be kept. He would see it through. And then something extraordinary happened, as help would arrive. Roger was there. Garp was there, Whitebeard was there, Big Mom was there, and Kaido was there. They all attacked Emu together, side by side. But even with the combined attacks of the world's strongest pirates, Emu was unharmed. Emu's glaze turned past the fighters, past the carnage, and found Eris and Teach on the other side of the island. Rocks saw past the chaos that surrounded him immediately, and realized what Emu was plotting, and what happened next only took a few seconds. Rocks jumped up into the air, driving his blade through the crown of Emu's form and split it apart, but Emu answered with two tendrils that tore through Rocks completely. And then came Domi Reversi. The transformation began. The man who had spent his entire life in pursuit of freedom, of power, of a world remade in defiance of these very people began to disappear, as something else would rise in its place. But for one brief, agonizing moment, Rocks was still there, still inside, still himself, and he used this moment to speak. He taunted Emu, saying that Davy's will would be passed down, that the promise would be fulfilled by whoever carried it next. And then he asked, quietly, with the calm of a man who already knew the answer, whether Emu was more afraid of Davy Jones or Joy Boy. Emu said nothing of consequence, only that the giants of Elbath would be bent to the world government's will, a declaration aimed precisely at the wound that had never healed, and it worked. And then the transformation was completed. Rocks D Xebec, the man who had invaded Marishwa alone, who had destroyed an entire gate of justice, who had built the most terrifying crew the world had ever seen, who had stood on equal ground to Harold of Elbath and refused to force his hand even when everything depended on it, was gone. What remained attacked Kaido, overwhelmed Linlin, and clashed with Whitebeard so violently that one of God Valley's mountains collapsed completely. And then it turned towards the coast, towards Eris. His wife and son were running from him, from what he had become, and the thing wearing his body was closing the distance between them. And then Bartholomew Kuma would appear, and in an instant they were gone, transported away from the island just before rocks and marine cannon fire could reach them. Emu believed that they were dead, and so Rocks was given his final order: wipe out every living soul remaining on God Valley. He tore through pirates, overwhelmed everything in his path, until two men stepped in front of him, Roger and Garp. And somewhere inside the demon, somewhere buried so deep that it should not have been reachable, Rocks called out to them, not with his voice, telepathically, with whatever remained of his real mind and will. He told them to kill him, and they heard him. What followed was not a battle, it was something closer to a mercy. Roger and Garp clashed with Rocks, all three of them pushing Conqueror's Hockey to its outermost limit, their clash splitting the sky above God Valley in two. It was a fight on a scale to which the world had never seen, until Roger and Garp understood what was actually being asked of them. They combined everything, every last fragment of their Conqueror's Hockey, compressed into a single, simultaneous strike, and launched it at the man who had, in another life, been the greatest pirate to ever sail the seas. And it worked. The demon receded. Rocks returned. He lay on the ground and looked up at the sky above God Valley, the island where he was born, now burning, now dying, now collapsing slowly into the sea. He was grateful that Roger and Garp would go on to escape. He had hoped for it, with the last clear thought available to him. However, Garling approached. In Rox's final moments, he would thank Roger and Garp for stopping him, and was satisfied with the fact that his wife and son were not harmed by the demon he had become, and that they managed to escape. But Garling's sword came down. Rox would be impaled by Garling and killed, and Rocks D Xebec, the man who had reached further than any pirate, died on the ground of the place where it all begun, and the world government erased the events of this day from every record, from every map, every history book, as if it never existed at all, as if the man who died on it had never drawn breath. But the will he carried did not die with him. It never does. And yeah, so that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if I missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.